Chapter 1940, The Phoenix One. Zhang Yi raised his hand, and a huge dimensional gate opened in the sky. The spear of Longinus fell from the sky and slammed down on Batian Juadi's body. Boom! Batian Juadi's body was crushed heavily into the ground, as if a graveyard had been erected in the wasteland, and the spear of Longinus was the tombstone. The black smoke was gradually swallowed up, and Batian Juadi's voice could no longer be heard from underground. That pillar of his is a sealing object. The ghost-faced nun screamed, her tone full of fear. So what? The golden-armored giant didn't think much of it. The purple-skinned lizard is not as strong as humans, so it's only natural that it lost. Even when it was alive, it was no match for him. Next is my turn. After he finished speaking, he walked forward to meet Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi had never ignored them. Is that all you've got? Why don't you all come at me together? Zhang Yi's gaze swept over all the lost souls, his eyes cold. The golden-armored giant laughed coldly. We are already dead souls. We exist in this place where we can never be freed, sinking into endless suffering. Do you think we would give up even our last shred of pride? Zhang Yi smiled faintly. It seems that if I want to leave this place, I must defeat all of you. By the way, will you show me the way? The golden-armored giant said coldly. Do you really think that you can defeat all of us by defeating that purple-skinned lizard? How ridiculous! My strength is far above his. He stretched out his arm and said to Zhang Yi, you just fought a battle, I won't take advantage of your weakness. I'll give you some time to recover, and when you're ready, we'll fight again. Don't worry, we have plenty of time. Zhang Yi didn't need to rest. He was still in excellent condition. He nodded, okay, I admire your strong character. Although he didn't need to rest, it was better to be safe than sorry. When his cell phone battery was at 99%, it would be safer to fully charge it. Zhang Yi skillfully pulled out a chair and sat down. Why not sit on the sofa? There was a reason for this. During breaks in battle, he couldn't let his body relax, otherwise it would seriously affect his fighting condition. It looked like Zhang Yi was resting, but in fact, he was discussing the next tactic with Yang Xinxin and the others. This guy looks like a lizard man. He should be from the Ecuadorian era, which is from the same era as the Wulwan Empire or the Dragon Clan of Qinling Mountain. The strength of this race lies in their high intelligence, strong physique, and powerful supernatural abilities. Since this guy dared to come to the Demon's Eye, he must be one of the best of the Ecuadorians. Perhaps he entered this place at the end of the last human era. He saw my battle with the purple dragon just now. Although I held back, I exposed my space ability. Since he's daring enough to fight me, it means he has a way to deal with me. I must fight him while retaining more than 80% of my strength to deal with the other lost souls. Kangda stood in the shadows, deep in thought. After listening to Zhang Yi's analysis, he said, it looks like they want to fight us one after another. That's very disadvantageous for you. Old Zhang, I think we should take this opportunity to attack him from the shadows and disrupt his state so that you can retain enough strength. Yang Xinxin objected to his suggestion. That's not possible. Don't forget, the souls can't be killed. There are still 5 powerful souls watching nearby. Even if we all attack, our chances of winning aren't very high. I think we should follow their rules first and test their strength. Unless, her eyes sparkled with cunning, we wait until my brother's battle becomes difficult before we act. Kangda frowned, but the longer the battle lasts, the more Zhang's abilities will be exposed. And they will be able to find loopholes in Zhang's abilities. I'm afraid that if we continue like this, it will be disadvantageous for him. Zhang Yi already had a plan in mind. It doesn't matter. There are many people who know my abilities, but knowing them doesn't mean they can break them. What's more, he said with a smile, aren't you also hiding in the shadows? Let's do as Xinxin said. Kangda's eyes darkened, and he immediately revealed a helpless expression and spread his hands. All right, since you insist on doing this, we will of course respect your opinion. Yang Xinxin glanced at Kangda, then naturally shifted her gaze away and focused on observing what was happening outside through Zhang Yi's smart device. The golden-armored giant stood far away on the wasteland, separated from the two of them by a long road. He was very patient, his strong arms wrapped around himself, not urging Zhang Yi. After resting for a while, Zhang Yi adjusted his body to its best condition. After confirming his blood oxygen concentration and heart rate, Zhang Yi stood up and put away his chair. "I'm ready." He smiled and waved to the golden giant. "Let's begin." The golden giant loosened his arms, and a fiery power suddenly emanated from his body. His golden armor, which had been covered in blood, burst into a dazzling light. Space seemed to twist, a change in light caused by the high temperature. The ground beneath his feet quickly cracked open, and the cracks turned golden red. Gurgle, gurgle. Scorching magma flowed from the cracks in the ground, quickly spreading to the surrounding area and soon reaching Zhang Yi's feet. Zhang Yi quickly retreated, and the entire area centered on the golden giant turned into a revived volcano, with magma gradually engulfing everything. "A flame ability user?" Zhang Yi muttered. "No, it can't be that simple." After witnessing the thunder and lightning abilities of Batian Juadi being suppressed in front of him, this pure release department ability user would not be foolish enough to come and fight him. Therefore, he must have other special abilities. "Before we begin, may I ask your name?" "Name?" The golden giant lowered his head in thought, then shook his head. "It's been too long, I've forgotten, just like that purple-skinned lizard. Just call me Phoenix." As soon as he finished speaking, Phoenix had no intention of continuing to argue with Zhang Yi. Because he held the golden giant sword in both hands, and on the golden blade, crimson patterns surged forth, flowing and swirling like molten lava. Screech! Chapter 1941, The Phoenix 2. Zhang Yi heard a loud and clear bird cry coming from the phoenix. From the molten lava rolling behind him, a huge firebird suddenly flew out. Its body was engulfed in raging flames, and it had a magnificent phoenix crown and 3 beautiful tail feathers, very similar to the phoenix in the myths and legends of the Huaxu Kingdom, but with obvious differences. It was more ferocious and more unruly. The immortal bird wrapped itself around the body of the phoenix, causing huge wings of flame to grow from his back, and the golden sword in his hand turned into a sword of molten lava. He raised the giant sword, the muscles in his arms bulging, several times thicker and longer than Zhang Yi's thighs, almost equal to his waist. This violent and aesthetic physique made it easy to imagine that he was a warrior from ancient times who revered brute force. "Neither flames nor brute force can have a decisive impact on me." Zhang Yi held a cannon in his left hand and a demon sword in his right hand, surrounded by everything under heaven, with demon god armor on his body, and using the ability of the second hand of time to predict everything that would happen in the next 4 seconds. He pushed himself to his limits. Don't be fooled by his ability index of only 35,000 points. His true combat power was definitely on par with the Black Bishop's 40,000 points. That was because he had too many cheats. If he didn't have such confidence, he wouldn't have come to this place of no return. "Come on, let me see how strong a warrior from ancient times is." Zhang Yi didn't choose to attack first, deliberately luring his opponent to make the first move. This way, he could judge the other party's true strength and whether they had any hidden abilities. The phoenix's eyes stared deeply at Zhang Yi. He opened his mouth and suddenly took a breath. This breath was like a hurricane, causing the air pressure around him to become extremely low. He sucked the scorching air into his stomach in large quantities, which was like a storm, causing a long gust of wind. This breath lasted for more than 10 seconds, and Zhang Yi was suddenly alarmed. What is he doing? Just at this moment, Lian Yu's voice suddenly rang in Zhang Yi's ear. No good, this phoenix is using breathing techniques. Zhang Yi, be careful, you've encountered a formidable opponent. Breathing techniques? Zhang Yi suddenly remembered what Lian Yu had said to him earlier. Zhang Yi had learned all his martial arts from Lian Yu, who, as the martial arts grandmaster of the Huaxu Kingdom, had reached the pinnacle of martial arts in the human world. She had once said that martial artists emphasized internal training, and the longer the breath, the more powerful the energy. Within the time it took to exhale, one could exert their power to the utmost. Once the breath was released, one's strength would decrease sharply. This is where the term leaking energy comes from. But looking at the phoenix, the amount of energy in its breath was simply too high. A powerful martial artist from ancient times? Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes and looked at the phoenix standing in the center of the magma and storm. So what? He would soon find out what would happen. After the phoenix finished breathing, it finally made its move. As soon as it moved, the magma on the ground wrapped around it like erupting flames, entangling it in its sword. Magma swirled all around, forming a huge vortex with a radius of several hundred meters with it at the center, and the vortex continued to expand. The immortal bird spread its wings and rushed forward at lightning speed, like a flash of light, reaching Zhang Yi in an instant. Zhang Yi stared intently at the giant in front of him, using what was left of everything under heaven to form a dense defense in front of him. He wanted to see how this person would break through his defense. At that moment, he saw the phoenix's eyes. How could he describe those eyes? There was not the slightest hesitation in those dark eyes, only a strong belief that he would defeat everything. The sword came towards him, carrying molten lava like a torrent, and slashed down on his head. Zhang Yi's everything under heaven was as if it didn't exist, and was directly slashed into pieces by the giant sword, unable to withstand even the slightest bit. Zhang Yi's pupils suddenly contracted, and he immediately raised the demon sword in his hand to defend himself. In an instant, the giant sword slammed hard onto the demon sword. He had thought that with the blessing of the demon god's armor, Zhang Yi would be able to block this blow, but even through the armor, the counterforce still made Zhang Yi feel as if his arm was about to break. Boom! He was sent flying along with his sword and fell heavily into the sea of magma. Whoosh! His consciousness returned, and Zhang Yi looked at the phoenix in the distance wielding the sword towards him, alarm bells ringing in his heart. The second hand of time what he had just seen shocked him beyond belief. He didn't notice any special supernatural abilities being released, it was just a normal sword, yet it had made his defense a joke. He no longer chose to defend, but took the initiative to attack. He raised the demonic sword in his hand, and a series of fierce sword beams slashed forward through the demonic sword. The pitch-black sword beams were antimatter energy, with the power to destroy everything. The phoenix was fearless. Although the giant sword in its hand was huge, it did not seem heavy at all when it swung. Magma rose from the ground like a tsunami, forming a thick wall to block Zhang Yi's attack. Zhang Yi fired his left-hand cannon repeatedly while asking Liang Yu, "I just saw him break through my defense with only a sword." "Liang Yu, what is going on?" The most powerful mutant with offensive abilities he had ever seen was Li Changgong, but even Li Changgong's ability, "I am heaven's will," had to pass through his dimensional gate to strike him. How could the person in front of him be so terrifying, using only a sword to tear apart his dimensional gate? This power was so strong that Zhang Yi even wondered if his opponent had reached the night level. However, during the subsequent confrontation, he discovered that this was not the case. After listening to Zhang Yi's account, Liang Yu pondered for a moment before replying. "Sincerity can move mountains." "What do you mean?" "This is the highest realm in martial arts, which even I cannot reach at present. It is a realm that is even more difficult than becoming one with heaven and earth." In other words, he has 100% confidence in his own strength and his sword. He firmly believes that his sword can cut through anything, and in this case, he can unleash 100% of his potential. Zhang Yi suddenly understood. It's similar to deep hypnosis, stimulating one's potential, right? "Yes," Liang Yu replied. Yang Xinxin added, "However, from a spiritual perspective, there is another explanation. He has the belief that he can slash through anything, which is equivalent to concentrating the power of his thoughts. The essence of all supernatural powers is our thoughts as spiritual beings. He concentrates his power in one point, so naturally he has the ability to destroy anything."